Live. Okay, hold on. Welcome everyone to another episode of Bringing Heaven to Earth, a podcast that unites wisdom keepers, healers, and inspirational leaders who are devoted, dedicated to elevating the consciousness of this planet. I'm Veronica Carrera. I'm the founder of Atartunti Holistic Retreat in Costa Rica, a place dedicated for healing, connection, and transformation. And today we have a phenomenal guest, a dear friend of mine, who also happens to be the event coordinator here at Atartunti, Carlene Davis. Carlene is a yoga instructor and a movement facilitator. So I'm so looking forward to this conversation with you, Carlene. So welcome, welcome. All right, so we'll get right to it. The first thing I wanted to ask you, Carlene, is can you share a little bit about yourself so people know the work that you do?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, I guess I can sort of condense some of that into the past 4 years since I've arrived here in Samara. I arrived with
Maybe
the
you can
invitation.
explain to people what Samara is, since many people do not know we're in this, Costa Rica here.
Samara is a crazy, sleepy little beach town in the middle of nowhere. No, Samara really is, it's a magical place. And I think it calls a certain type of person to this space who is answering a soul call to expand in a way that perhaps we wouldn't have been able to expand in other areas of the world. So.
That's right. So then what do you do here? Maybe just explain to people a little bit about who Carlene is.
Mm-hmm. So I arrived here just over 4 years ago. Previously, I was an elementary school teacher, originally from Toronto, and I arrived with an invitation to work at a school. So some of the things that have been keeping me aligned with my purpose since arriving have been everything from working in 2 different schools here, teaching elementary. I then slowly started to transition into some of my other passionate projects. I started a little dance school here. I was a dancer for my whole childhood, right up until my early 20s. And I also have been a yoga instructor here in the community. So over the most recent years, I've been starting to lead some retreats here in Costa Rica. And yeah, I mean, I think to sum it up, I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher at heart, whether that be in a classroom, whether it be through movement facilitation, whether it be sharing the teachings of these ancient practices. I'm definitely here to share a voice.
You're here to share a voice, and you're a phenomenal voice. I have taken yoga classes with you, and they're just so transcendental. I mean, you inspire me to want to take yoga. It will probably be a surprise to a lot of people that I have a hard time settling into this practice. I didn't really connect to it, maybe because I grew up as an athlete and I always feel that I need to be in movement and getting to the next movement, sweat, all of that. So for me to sit still and just stretch and fall into this movement has been a hard practice. And then I sat with you in a yoga class and I fell in love with it. I can say that. And I have been, since then, I've been feeling that I just need to do this more often. So thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for being a phenomenal yoga instructor. And we are so lucky to have you here at Atartunti as one of our primary yoga instructors. My partner, Angelica, and you both hold the space in this practice, in this sacred space of the retreat. So thank you for that. I do want to dive in now into this real conversation because all of us fall into this space because something happened in our lives that made us awaken to something more, to live in a different way that feels more true to ourselves. So I just want to ask you, Carlene, can you share a defining moment in your life that inspired you to pursue this path of consciousness?
Yeah, it's difficult to narrow it down just to one specific moment because I do feel that life is a ever-ending cycle of transformation and we're continually evolving. You know, part of my personal journey has been that for whatever reasons, as a part of my path, I've always had this conflicting story with health. From a young age, at 8 years old, I was diagnosed with a rare kidney disease. And my mom was actually the one who kind of helped to remind me of this first initiatory path towards transformation at a retreat that she shared with me at the end of this last summer. And so she was sharing with the group that at that time of the diagnosis, she decided to put me into dance lessons. And dance really became an invitation into exploring my own authenticity, my own sense of creative expression through movement, through breath, through storytelling. And I think that, you know, that very early moment of having to receive a diagnosis that, you know, I was just a kid and you just, as kids, you are resilient because you don't know anything different. But it did sort of begin this pathway for me in connecting to myself and to my body in a way that felt empowering and in a way that, you know, hopefully I could tell a story that would then impact those around me.
All right. So you had a health situation that made you start thinking about there is a different way of living. So with that, I appreciate you being so open about this because I know this is something vulnerable to start opening our lives, but I know that this is important to talk about because something made us awaken our minds and our hearts to something, I wouldn't just say greater, but in a way it is, yeah, to a greater way of, or a bigger consciousness. And I want to just dive in a little bit more into what challenges have you encountered on your journey of transformation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think, you know, there's many challenges that come up through life's experience. I would say one challenge that I have continually found myself confronted with, and something that I do feel this past year really brought into almost a sense of resolution. Like I felt there was a sort of an ending of a karmic cycle for me around speaking my truth, showing up authentically in a way that is not fearful of acknowledging the difficulties and the challenges and the discomforts of what may be taking place around us. Yeah, this journey into trusting my intuitive voice and recognizing that our bodies really are the organ of truth. And so every time we feel that tightening of the throat or those butterflies in the belly or the throat drops down into the belly, that is our higher self speaking to us through our physical body. And a lot of the time we find ourselves in situations where we self-abandon, right? Where we deny that voice, that tickle, that inclination, that uprise of whatever it is that wants to be expressed, but we sort of gaslight ourselves. The mind comes in and it ends up not really going against what the body knows to be true. And so I think that, sorry if I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent right now, but I think one of the biggest challenges that I have continually come up against is being able to take a step back and listen to what's happening at a physical and energetic and emotional level and be able to hold that with conviction and express it in a way that is loving, that is compassionate, but which doesn't abandon itself.
So what you're referring to is, I think, that what happens to a lot of people is self-abandoning ourselves, not being able to speak truth, exactly what we're feeling in our hearts, what we're feeling in our bodies, and somehow we shut down that voice. That at times it feels like self-betrayal. Definitely is one of the reasons why people experience sicknesses and experience just a lot of anxiety and depression. Um, Without getting so much in perhaps of whatever feels comfortable to you, could you share just a little bit deeper? How do we self-abandon ourselves? Just give me an example in which ways would Carlene or maybe any of your clients, you feel that deeper ways that we self-abandon ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can come up in many ways. I mean, every time that we say yes to something when our authentic self is giving us a no, and vice versa. I think anytime we go against our own moral code as a way of either pleasing those around us, as a way of sort of bending to what has been conditioned by society or by our families or by whatever situation it is that we've found ourselves in. You know, we're human beings and we have egos and we want to be liked and we want people to like us. You know, I think none of us want to hurt another being. Um, but I think it's a practice. I think understanding the self-abandonment practice is a practice of refining your discernment and understanding, you know, what is right in any given moment and how can you hold that with love and with compassion, not just for yourself, but for others. And the more you practice that within your being, the more you inspire others to show up authentically as well.
Yeah.
To not self-abandon themselves.
That's right. So it starts with us because when we own our own truth, our own authenticity, and we practice that muscle of integrity. And the muscle of integrity is how do we bring together all the pieces of ourselves so that they are aligned, they're in coherence, and that way that if we live in the world that way, just our very presence inspires others. And this is a journey. This is a journey because I feel that that for me, there are times that I feel fully aligned, and there are times that I feel myself off center, and I have to really reflect on what aspects of myself are not in alignment at this moment. What truth am I not telling myself, or I don't want to even look at? Yeah, is it, if I may say, some of the general questions that we have clients asking themselves when they come here is, am I in the right role in my career? Am I really passionate about this? Am I in the right relationship? Am I living the life that I want or that I wanted? Or am I living somebody else's desire for me, for the life that they want to create for me? It's a people pleasing situation that you talked about. Why do we people please? What do you think that happens? Why? It's particularly with women, right? And I don't want to put it all on women because it does happen with men, but why do we have this challenge as people with wanting to please others? What's underneath that?
Well, I think, you know, especially as women, we have been, you know, we've been modeled a lifestyle of people pleasing, right? That there is, for some reason, society has conditioned us into believing that we are inferior to a man, and that the, you know, the role of the maternal in the household is to keep everything together, right? And is to make sure that everybody is okay, and therefore self-sacrificing and putting the needs of others before our own, right? I mean, I think we people please because, back to what I said is at a inherent soul sort of level, we all desire to be loved, and 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 therefore we sometimes fall into this state um, where we give up parts of ourselves because we are afraid of what another may interpret, of ruffling somebody else's feathers, of not saying the right thing, and it ends up creating more self-destruction. Ultimately,
it ends up creating more self-destruction ultimately. Yeah, and it's that need to ultimately, like you said, be loved and belong and belong. But we can never belong to anyone else unless we connect through our authenticity, through our truth. So ultimately, we end up belonging to nothing or no one when we are not truthful with ourselves. So thank you for that beautiful reflection. I want to dive into something that is one of your superpowers.
Okay.
And basically is your yoga practice. As I said, you are a wonderful yoga instructor. It's not just the yoga movements that you do, that they're so exact. You are a perfectionist, which I love because I know that if I walk into your class, that I'm going to be guided in the best way. But also, I love it when you stand in front of people and you share the philosophies of yoga, which I hardly get to understanding. I think if I connect to the practice spiritually and even intellectually, I can appreciate it more. So if you can just look at the audience and explain what yoga really means. I know that, and this nowadays everyone can go online, chat GPT, and just just ask what yoga is. But I want the explanation to come through you. What is yoga? What kind of yoga practice do you teach, and why?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, we think that yoga is this sort of something that's outside of ourselves or some sort of destination that we're going to arrive to. And what I've learned, and I'll get into in a moment what the sort of style or the flavor of yoga is that I particularly teach, is that ultimately what yoga offers us is it becomes a sort of peeling back of the layers. It's an unveiling of something that's already there, something that's already within ourselves. And we have a tendency as human beings to over externalize, right? And I think that that comes from the ego of these attachments to identities and to the material world and to our desires and our aspirations, et cetera, et cetera. But yoga for me has really been a practice, and what I believe it was always aimed at was a process of going inwards and recognizing what is already there within. So rather than, sort of reaching or grasping for something that's outside of you, it's a practice of going inwards and sort of polishing, refining these aspects of ourself to reveal what is already there and what has always been there.
And what is already there? What has already been there, then our guests can come in and experience here. Because yoga has been also so commercialized, right? It becomes all about the movement. But I think that what I love about what you do and what my partner does is that you take people beyond the movement. So you guide people to connect to what's already there inside of them. So what is it? What is it that you help people connect to?
Well, I mean, you said it earlier that initially in your own personal journey towards yoga, you were coming at it from a very athletic, sort of physical place. And I think that that's a normal starting point for many. And I hear it all the time when people come into practice. It's their first class. Hey, I'm not flexible. I don't know how I'm going to be at yoga. I'm not very flexible. And, you know, it is a physical practice, absolutely. And yet that's only one small aspect of what the practice really is. And so to kind of tie in some of what you had asked me previously, you know, the practice that I teach is tantric yoga. And tantric yoga is a non-dual practice in that it views the world, it views our body and life and everything that is in this sort of manifested form as an aspect of the divine, a reflection of the divine. And so when we approach our own bodies through that perspective, you know, it goes far beyond just the physicalities. And it's a practice of listening. So yes, we can work with the physical body in all of these ways to sort of prime us for where we are ultimately going to end up. And it's that process of listening. It's that moment that you experience when you are in your meditation, where things become quiet and there is a spontaneous spiritual insight where for a moment you get to perceive yourself in a way that you don't when you're operating within your day-to-day. Right?
Is it a scientific explanation to this? Because what you're talking about as you're thinking about the answer is that we can get to a heightened state of awareness through different mindfulness practices. And then in our regular day-to-day lives, we are constantly distracted by not only what we have to achieve that day, but our concerns, worries, what's not in alignment in our lives. Our minds become like a highway of many thoughts, highway of many, many, many lanes. And sometimes it feels exhausting. Yeah. And then somehow these practices like yoga or meditation, what do they do to the mind and body? And maybe because I know you're such a powerful teacher, what is the explanation? What does it do to the mind from this very busy highway? Where does it take you? And is there any scientific explanation about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, that busyness, those highways that you're talking about from a yogic perspective, we call that vrittis. Vrittis being the sort of fluctuating thoughts of our mind. And of course, we're constantly being stimulated. We are drawing in information through our senses. Okay, those are called the yanendriyas in yoga. And that stimulation is activating whether it be a memory, whether it be you know, a sort of moment of over-identifying, that would be coming from the ego, and we start to we lose ourselves in a sense that we allow the mind to take us out of this current moment, out of this present space. And we become distracted and we start thinking about, okay, what do I need to make for dinner? And oh, I have to send this email and yada, yada, yada. And before we know it, we are no longer present right here, right now. And so through the practice of yoga and specifically in the last stage of meditation, that stage of samadhi, which is a state of complete absorption, in that moment, which is described as, you know, an extreme sense of bliss that fills the body, and absolutely it is blissful in that that is the union. That is the yoga that's happening, right? Yoga means union. So that is the union that happens because in that moment of samadhi, we have no concept of who I am, what my name is, here I am in this body, where am I in this space? For a moment, all of those other identities and perceptions of self completely dissolve. And instead, what you're left with is an absorption with the authentic self, the higher consciousness. That's that experience of bliss that fills the body when it is a revealing of who we are at our core, which I do believe is the mode of love.
Oh, wow. I mean, I'm taking a pause here because I have had a couple of moments in my life, a few moments where I have felt the moment where there is no time, there is no space, there is only love, and there is only, I can say the now, but there is just not even that, because that means there is time, but there is just this moment, this eternal moment, the eternal now. What a beautiful experience to feel this. What does that do for our guests when they come here, or when you facilitate your own retreats? But what does it do for someone where they're able to come and experience that eternal now for their life?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult to put into words what that does for someone, especially someone who has spent a majority of their life disconnected from that embodiment experience. And not because it's intentional, but because we are human beings operating in a world where we have a lot of responsibilities, and therefore there are a lot of distractions that cloud that radiant light that is there within. So what does that do for someone who catches, even if it's just a glimpse, a moment? It can be enough to completely reorient yourself to your own being. It can be enough to reorient yourself to all of your relationships, to your job, to your lifestyle, to your aspirations, to your goals, to your pursuits, to your attachments, to your dislikes. It's an entire reorientation, because for a moment you get to feel the true self. You get to feel yourself coming back into that space of unconditional love. And when you land there, it's more of a remembering, I would say.
It's more of a remembering. And scientifically, also, what it happens, you rewire your neural pathways in your brain, and you're able to then tap into that presence, even when you are out of the yoga space, out of your yoga mat. So when you get to work, and as a leader, I was a sales leader, there were many instances, I think the primary aspect of my job is to be a great listener. And I do have to say that perhaps that's one of my, or is one of my superpowers, being able to listen and profoundly listen to the people that work with me or work for me, or listen to our clients, because there's nothing else in that moment that matters than the employee or the client, and truly find that cord that connects us as humans, so that I understand how to help and empower them so they get to their next level of transformation, whether it is to achieve certain business goals, or whether it is to achieve a level of more peace around what they do, or help them make decisions. But that wouldn't happen if it wasn't because I'm able to tap into this eternal now,
Right.
where I'm not distracted as I'm listening to you about, or I'm not distracted with what am I going to do later, or what should I say next. No, it is because through the yoga practice and the meditation practice, we have exercised the muscle to be in this empty space of the now, when we truly get to connect to this other human being, not from our ego, not for our own benefit, but truly connect to the whole for the benefit of the whole.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, what you just touched on as well, and which is so true, and inherent into the tantric yoga practice is there's this fundamental part of our being that seeks to express itself into the awareness of another.
Yes.
And that practice of witnessing each other that you offer for your clients taps into that that energy of reciprocity, where
Reciprocity.
consciousness is doing this beautiful dance, and it's it's outlined. I'm not going to go into it right now for the sake of time, but it's inherent into the myth of Shiva and Shakti, which is at the core of the tantric practice. This idea that there is a part of all of our own consciousness, Shakti, the feminine principle, that's always seeking to express itself into the awareness of Shiva. And that expression cannot be, it's uncontrollable, it's irreducible, it's impulsive, it's always rising. That's the Kundalini, that's always rising. And so therefore, when we're able to do it for one another, as friends listening, which you are such a beautiful listener, and you really do offer that presence to anybody who's in front of you. I know that as your friend. That delights the consciousness within yourself and within whoever is in front of you, right?
Yeah, the light just gets brighter within us and in our space. And that's what we offer others. It's such a beautiful reflection. I mean, this, before I ask you one of our final question also, and it made me think of something. And normally it's something that I actually have shared before. And I always wanted to share, and I was self-conscious about sharing, but I think this is the right moment to do it. When I was a sales leader, I had someone, and I'm still a sales leader. I just have different businesses, but I had someone who was just a wonderful human being and wonderful professional, but he had such a hard time meeting sales calls. And I made it a point to make sure that I invested more time in this individual, because I think that all that he needed is just more guidance and direction. And after we went through training, through sales methodology, negotiations, everything, yes, it helped, but I knew there was something else. He would miss one business deal and then the other, and I wasn't sure what was happening because I knew he was working super hard. But I think there was something else that was taking over. It was self-doubt.
Yeah.
It was this sense of, I'm not as good as this other salesperson. I'm probably not the best person in the team. And I think I started tapping into perhaps what was going on inside of him. And I remember we were supposed to have a one-on-one meeting, to just checking meeting to see how he was doing. And right before I sat in meditation. I sat in meditation in complete silence, in emptiness. And in my meditation, I asked for guidance to help and empower this person in my team. And funny enough, this answer that was so unconventional came to me because he had already missed 3 big deals that he couldn't renew before this, he had to achieve quota. Right? And we are driven by numbers, especially in the corporate world. So, but what came to me in the meditation was something that normally you wouldn't tell people, especially in a sales environment, is tell him that it's okay to fail. Tell him that it's okay to fail, that you're both just going to fail together. Yeah? That was it. And right after my meditation and receiving this wisdom, what I call wisdom, I remember being on a call with him, and I said, I called him by the name, and I said, "Hey, how are you feeling?" That was the first question. And he was telling me how much he was struggling because he was working so hard. And he couldn't understand why nothing was falling into place, and he was about to miss his quota hugely. And there were only a few weeks left to the quota. And I remember I looked at him, I could sense his suffering, the feeling of I'm not enough. And I told him, hey, It's okay to fail. Let's just now go all in together. We're going to go back to every customer. We're going to try to see if we can win those some deals back, and without worrying about failure. You and I are going to do this together, and I don't care about failure. If we fail, we're going to fail together, and we're going to fail big. This is a quarter that we're going to fail big. Okay, that's going to be our motto. All right. The opposite happened. He cannot let go of that huge weight on his shoulders. Huge. And what happened with that freedom and that presence of constantly being worried, I'm not going to be able to meet my quota, I'm not going to be able to be this, I'm not good enough, I'm not as great as anybody else. Then we went to back to every client that had said no, that they couldn't renew this multi-million-dollar contract. We went back and did everything in just a little bit lighter, with more play. And then for him, the understanding it doesn't matter what they say. We're just going to show up with more presence. And I kid you not, in just a matter of 3 weeks, we brought everybody back. And not only did he meet his quota, but he excelled. And I'm always grateful, because I cannot emphasize enough to people who lead business leaders and to sales leaders, how important it is to tap to yourself to become a more conscious leader, either through meditation and yoga, so that you can be a more inspiring leader that can create winning cultures and people feel psychologically safe. So there's a certain wisdom that comes through these practices, of which you are a phenomenal teacher. So thank you for being one of our main yoga instructors here at Opportunity. So maybe just share a little bit about Opportunity and what it feels for you to teach here in this space.
Well, first of all, I'm just honored that I get to spend the morning every time I step into this space. It's a beautiful moment. And I always say the moment you step onto this mountain, the quality that I experience the most is peace. It's like all of the excessive anxieties or, little buzz that the system, the nervous system is holding on to. The moment you land on this mountain, there is a sense of grounding and centering and a beautiful experience of peace. What do I know about Opportunity? I've been here from the beginning.
Yes, when there was nothing built. We were just building the infrastructure of the mountain, and we came to what is it? What is it? We camped overnight.
We camped overnight. We brought a tent. We had the workers help us make a little fire. So this was just, don't say just. This was a beautiful piece of land. But I think beyond having the road in place,
that was it.
So, to watch the evolution of Opportunity has been incredibly inspiring and actually quite quick, despite the way it feels sometimes when you're living here and in the midst of the challenges that come up.
When you build something in a different country.
And it can feel like that timeline is just going on and on and on. But I think when we really take a step back and look at what has transpired, what has evolved, what has transformed, what has been created in a relatively short time, I mean, it's greatly inspiring for me. Opportunity is, beyond the space, it's the people that are behind the space, which is you and Helika. And you are safety, you are family, you are possibility. Like, you have such a wonderful ability, and I think this is one of the qualities that makes you a strong leader, is that you don't see the impossible, you don't see obstacles. And we've had so many personal conversations over the years where, when I'm feeling down in the trenches, you've been able to just, impart a little bit of wisdom, or perhaps just the fact that you are able to show up as that fully present witness. It always has helped me to tap into or remind me of the potentiality to create.
Yes, and it's an honor to have you here as one of our.
I love this woman. I love this woman.
We love you too immensely. One of our main yoga instructors, for those of you who come to Opportunity to even just experience the space, as Carlene said, uh, the yoga and the meditation and everything else.
And the
is just
inspiration. It's an
the
inspiring
inspiration.
place to land, for anybody who might be finding themselves at a point in time where they're feeling stuck or stagnant. Coming to Opportunity, there's so much medicine, but I really do feel the medicine of reactivating that spark, that inner fire,
Inner fire of life.
is
Yes.
something that can be touched into.
Yeah, and we talked about the mission of Opportunity, which, by the way, Opportunity means bringing heaven to earth. That's why we call the podcast this. Um, at first, I thought about it. Oh, is it going to resonate with people bringing heaven to earth? And then, for the sake of authenticity, I said, this is really what we're about. And so, what does it mean to bring heaven to earth? And that's the way we're going to finish this podcast. For me, and then I'll have you finish this. For me, bringing heaven to earth is allowing people to come here, heal all the parts of themselves that is not truly them, shed anything that doesn't serve them in their lives, let go, either past traumas, people, circumstances that does not serve them, that do not serve their highest self, and then come back to their wholeness and their fullness so they can live a joyful and powerful or empowered life. That is what bringing heaven to earth is. And the reason why this is so important for me, because I believe that every individual that heals and come back to their wholeness, they're going to be able to go out in the world and impact the world in meaningful and significant ways. They're going to be better fathers, better mothers, better friends, and more, phenomenal leaders in the world. And that's what we need right now in a time where there is so much conflict and there's so much uncertainty. So that's part of our mission. And that's what bringing heaven to earth means to me. It's not we just come here and experience some transcendental things, but what do you do with it? What do you do with that experience to make the world a better place? And that's what we're all about. For you, Carlene, so why don't you wrap us up? What does it mean to bring heaven to earth, Carlene?
Yeah, I think you just touched on it at the end there, specifically when you said, so what do we do with it? Because for me, when I hear that, bringing heaven to earth, it touches on the practice and process of the embodied experience. What I mean by that is, okay, so if I am to first take this word, and let's remember that words are limited, but heaven, okay, well, what is that symbolic of? All of these virtues of what we spoke about: love, compassion, integrity, truth, kindness, presence, authenticity, right? Those for me are these virtues of heaven. And the earth for me feels tangible. That feels like the embodied experience. And so the prompt there, what do you do with it? That's the sort of, you could say the yoga, the union that's happening is, it's beautiful to talk about these ideals, but without the practice, without the embodied experience, without actually putting ourselves out there through our relationships and our interactions and our offerings in a way that gives a physical manifestation to those ideals, then it's just philosophy or theory.
Yes. That's beautiful. So we're just creating the bridge between the higher realms or the qualities of heaven, higher frequency into our embodied experience in this earth. wherever we are, whatever role we play. It does not matter. That's exactly where you need to be, exactly where you need to be to make a difference in the world. And all we're doing is all of us walking this path together of manifesting the greatest expression of our humanity. Manifesting the greatest expression of our humanity. So thank you everyone for being with us today. Please feel free to contact us if you have any questions about coming here and experiencing this powerful, amazing yoga practices here with Carlene, with my partner, and everything else that happens here, the meditation, the ancestral ceremonies,
The dance.
the liberation,
The medicine.
the medicine, the salt pool,
The saltwater pool.
amazing food, farm to table food, so that you can cleanse your body and then reconnect and remember all pieces of yourself, so that you are one whole, majestic individual. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful week. Thank you for being here with us.